That's where we'll start focusing a little bit on the commissions module, specifically intended to be business owned, entirely rules driven. So we want to empower comp operations, sales operations, finance to be able to manage the creation of the compensation plan, but then also manage the changes that manifest throughout the course of the year that require us to adapt to new business strategies, new market conditions, and how do we manage that on a data effective basis as well. And you can see over here an inventory of plans that are designed within the application. And one common misconception is that incentive compensation is exclusively focused for sales organizations. And while they're the primary kind of use case for developing compensation plans, the reality is infinitySPM can create compensation structures for any role that has a variable component to their total earnings. So for example, if you look at business development reps, they're compensated on qualified leads or conversion of leads to revenue. You might look at customer success managers that are compensated based off of customer retention. And then, of course, you might have standard sales reps, which are typically compensated on bookings or revenue or gross margin. And you can see that when we define these plans, we associate components that describe the mechanics of how their incentive program works. And as I mentioned before, and as you'll continue to see, the theme of data effectivity. So being able to manage and assign these these components on a data effective basis to allow sales ops and finance organizations to do things like time-bound spiffs. If I want to run a contest in the middle of the year, how do I create a time-bound component that will drive that extra incentive throughout the course of the year? Again, to align to specific business strategies and objectives of the organization. This is kind of what we were referred to when we were talking about driving sales behavior through the compensation plans. All of these components are all rules driven in terms of the assembly of the components and how we define the logic of these components. Again, this is entirely meant to be business owned. And you'll see that the components are comprised of an assembly of rules. The first rule that we typically see is a credit rule. How do you take orders and identify which of those orders qualify for particular incentive components? Once you identify which orders qualify, there's typically what we refer to as an attainment rule. How do we determine how much credit or how much quota those credits are retiring, or how much a sales rep is attaining towards their annual goal or their quarterly goal? And then once you identify what's qualified and what the attainment level is for that particular order, then the earning rule is really a means to figure out, well, how much commission are we going to pay on that order? What rate are we going to use to compensate a sales rep for an order that they have qualified for? And all of those rules are available in the rules engine over here. And again, these are intended to be business-owned, user-friendly, intuitive rule-building process, and it's all contextual. So when I look at credit rules, this is logic filters. Typically, you'd see the same type of rules apply in tools like Excel, where you're assembling logic in and, or, not kind of logical expression formats, if you will. Attainment rules focus strictly on attainment logic and the functions that we have available here, determining which credit types qualify for the retirement of certain quotas and what does the aggregation level of those quotas look like. And then earning rules are slightly different, right? Earning rules are really an exercise of identifying, well, what rate table are we going to use to identify which rates we're going to use to pay commissions on? How do we index into the rate table? Is it based off of a higher rate? Is it based off of a flat rate or a blended rate? All of these configurations are, again, intended to be business owned and are aligned with industry best practices. And collectively, when bringing these rules together, allow sales operations and finance and comp operations organizations to really create complex and powerful and nuanced calculations as part of the incentive compensation program. Every change that is managed within the system is entirely tracked through audit capabilities. So who made the change? When did they make the change? What was the before and after results of that change as well? So we have full auditability in terms of how we're managing the compensation program.